right. S63 AMG. It felt a little rough when I initially started it. So I'm actually going to use this camera to check the motor mount so I can rewatch it and see how much this motor moves. Oh yes, you can definitely tell these motor mounts are broken. I believe this one's completely disconnected, judging by how much that engine really comes up out of the car. So, and you can feel it too whenever you first start it, like the vibrations coming through the chassis. It would definitely need new ones of those, especially whenever they're completely separated. It stops to be a comfort item at that point and begins to be a safety thing of how much the engine can move. You can rip things like hoses and stuff. You're gonna have the engine come up and like leave marks on the bottom of the hood there. All right, so just to look over everything else in the engine bay here to see anything else obvious. Obviously, this one's here for coolant leak. So the customer said it's the turbo cooler lines. So just gonna confirm that and look over anything else it may need. So first thing I'm gonna do is get these covers off so I can see everything and see if there's anything else going on in here. Alright, so the dipstick's broken, the handle. I guess that doesn't really matter, but just regarding the dipstick, I don't normally do this, but I figured I'd check the oil since I'm going inside anyways. And just out of curiosity, see what it's at. That's good. Yeah, that's good level. The coolant's obviously completely empty. Nothing in there at all. This is a very early 157 engine, so this one is not with the remote reservoir here. Like you would have a secondary reservoir for the coolant. For the turbo specifically, it would be there, but it doesn't have that one, so this is the only cooling circuit in the whole car. So, let's see. He also mentioned he wanted a drive belt. I was gonna look at the tensioner too. Yeah, the drive belt's definitely cracking out a good bit. The water pump looks good. Those are common failures. Okay, yeah, see the turbo coolant line he's talking about? It's definitely leaking right down there. So there's that one, and there's another one right beside it cracking that I'm sure we won't be able to get a good angle on. But yeah, definitely needs coolant hoses. And that's all the coolant for the turbo. Both the turbos route around and have coolant flowing through them, obviously. So we'll replace those. This is messed up a little bit. Not that it super matters. I guess someone brutally installed this and cracked it out. So it's not making good seal on the air box there. And that's another thing too. These strut bushings are all corroded. You see it's all crumbly with what used to be a little rubber. Both of these are completely crumbled out there. See all that? So, also I guess I'll take this one out too to check out these timing covers. They're very common to leak on this engine. To leak oil. Yeah, you see the oil leaking out of the front of this one here? All that oil residue down there. That may be worth addressing. And it's bad because it's right on top of the turbos on each side, which is the hottest part of the engine. So whenever it does drip on the turbos, it burns off of them. Yeah, this one too is pretty bad. This one's worse than the other side. Let's see. This is suspiciously oily because the oil fill cap is on that side. A lot of times people will fill these up and they'll overflow and miss and get oily around here. Now that I say that, you can see that's cracked. The oil cap is cracked. Maybe that's where this residue is coming from. When the oil vaporizes, when it gets hot, it gets very thin. You can see the crack on that cap. That may be worth replacing. I'll put it out at least. I'm sure it's $15 or so. But as far as anything else, oh, what I was talking about, this oil here on this connector, super common issue on this engine as well, is to have oil inside the engine harness, and these sensors are the ones that leak. I see these are aftermarket sensors. So that means either the problem's been addressed or it was unrelated and someone put aftermarket sensors in them. Mercedes does have revised sensors now that don't internally leak, but I'll check those out. All right, so I got the main engine connector unplugged from the engine computer here. And there is a little bit of shiny stuff on a couple of these pins. Oh yeah, that's oil. You see on the corner of that Kleenex there? I like to use the Kleenex because it's white. So the oil is getting into the computer at this point. So that tells me the entire wiring harness is saturated with oil. And I'll show you where that's coming from. So, yep, these connectors are where it's at. See, that's completely soaked with oil. It's soaking wet with oil. I bet this one will be even worse because I can visibly tell from the outside that it's wet. Okay, so just unplug one on this side of the engine as well. You can see it's soaking with oil. Every one of these is going to be. So that's only gonna turn into a bigger and bigger issue as it soaks into more and more components around the engine. You'll see more and more failures. I did notice the check engine light on in the instrument cluster. The customer wasn't concerned about that, but I guess I'll hook up the scan tool and read that fault code to at least see what that is. It very well may be for O2 sensors. That's one of the first things that go out because it's very sensitive to different resistances in the wires and things. Of course, that changes if the wires are soaked in oil, like this entire wiring harness is. But the only fix for this at this point would be, of course, the updated sensors, a new wiring harness, and clean out the ECU of oil. And usually you can get away with just doing that, and it'll stop the spreading of oil. And then clean out any oil and any other connectors that you may see in any other components on the engine. But I'll quote that job out as well to see if he'd like to get that. Or if not, at least in the future, know what he would be looking at if he ever wants to get that addressed, if it gets worse and worse. Okay, and everything else is to check some of these fluids. You'd normally check this level precisely with the engine on, but just to make sure they're not dead empty or it's the wrong kind of fluid or something like that. Yeah, all these look good. You can get a general idea with it off, but to properly check it, you check it when it's on. So yeah, that's all I see really in the engine bay. I can see the motor mounts, how aged they are. Oh, you can really see the extent of this front cover leak here on the top of the heat shielding on top of this turbocharger. See all this oil residue? All that is coming from these front timing covers. It may have even been redone in the future. That seems like a very thick sealant bead, much thicker than it probably should be from the factory. So I wonder if someone didn't quite get the sealant path on there just right. It may be factory, I'm just not used to seeing it that thick. But regardless, I always take out these front covers and then replace the O-rings for these camshaft solenoids and then reseal it, like clean it off very, very clean, wipe it down with alcohol cleaner and then put fresh sealant on it. And then of course clean up any of the oil that's leaked out from whatever leak it is. Okay, so just as I was lifting the car up, I saw this connector dangling here. I'm not really sure what this is for. One of the windshield connectors. The windshield wiper motor is a lot larger than that. And the other connector for it here is just cut off from the main harness. There's some writing on it. Maybe this came from a junkyard or something. But this is super loose, so I wonder if someone's been in here before or what story that is, but I guess I'll leave it where I found it and sort of tuck that connector back down in there. The seal isn't really. This firewall panel isn't put in place very well either. But while I was here, I noticed a small oil leak coming from the back of the cylinder head. It looks to be one of the camshaft plugs, which I'll be able to see better from underneath. So let's continue lifting it up. Okay. First thing I noticed on the way up, I don't know if these are factory brakes or not, but they're dimpled rotors, like they're not completely drilled through. But you can see how shallow the dimples are of how worn the rotor is. Like you can't even feel them really. It's a pretty strong lip on the outside of them. But let's see the pads. Oh yeah, the pads are pretty low too. Yeah, it's about 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, so about 10 to 15% life on the brakes. I don't think the brake warning light is on yet, and it triggers at about 3. This one only has a wear sensor on this side. This rotor's the same way. Very, very grooved and very worn. This has to be the second set of pads on the same rotor, I would imagine. Yeah, I definitely recommend front brakes at this time. It's not going to make it to the end of the year regardless. That brake warning light should be turning on any time with the pads that low. Okay, but as far as the suspension goes, actually let me go ahead and get this under shielding off. I'm going to be taking it off anyways. And also dripping with coolant, and I don't want to get dripped on. Just check for the suspension. All these boots, and like this one right here. This boot's busted. You can see all the grease is already washed out of there, and it's pretty dry in that joint. I wonder if that's probably making noise, I'd imagine, with a ball joint that bad. But you can't do these ball joints separate, they're made into the control arm. So it just need this control arm, and then of course the wheel alignment readjusted. This strut's also starting to leak a bit. It's hydraulic suspension in this car. You can see it's getting wet on the bottom there. So just to keep that in mind. The upper ball joint looks good, and all of the rest of these look good. And on to the other side, this upper ball joint looks good. This shock's not leaking at all. The ball joint on this one is okay for now, but you always replace suspension components in pairs. This bushing will wear the same, the ball joint wears the same, and it's going to affect it differently if you just replace one without the other. This bushing looks good, and all the other ball joints look good on the suspension. Okay, I don't see any other coolant leak sources. Just if there are any, it'd be nice to knock it out in one time, so for one, you don't have to pay for coolant twice and filling it and bleeding it twice. But the only thing I'm seeing is those turbo coolant lines, as the customer already said. I don't see any more leaks from any of these AC hoses or coolant hoses. The radiators all look good. The oil cooler looks good. All of this looks fine. Yes. Okay, moving further back down the engine. You can see this, it's a centrifuge cover on the back of the right exhaust cam. It's just getting a little oily, just starting to sweat out a little bit. I haven't really deemed that a leak yet, but you can see it's coming out a little bit. Like it's not even enough to form a droplet at this point. Just something to note in the future, keep an eye on that. Okay, and then back of this head, like I said up top. Oh yeah, that's a pretty good leak on the back of this one. I don't know if you can get a good angle on that or not, but it's a camshaft plug. Basically, there's nothing on the back of this camshaft, so they just put like a little rubber plug in the back of the camshaft on the back of the cylinder head, and that plug is leaking. Okay, down the transmission, looks good. No leaks from the transmission anywhere, which is good to see. Transmission mount, in a lot better condition than the motor mounts at least. I'm sure that transmission mount had to have been replaced at some point in the past without the motor mounts, which is never suggested. You always want to do the transmission mount and motor mounts in pairs because the whole drivetrain assembly is in one unit, so you don't want it sitting off center. So if you replace just the transmission mount with a new one, not the motor mounts, then the driveline angle is off and you can run into problems with drive shaft wearing or these flex discs wearing, which we're about to inspect now. In the back of the car, check the exhaust rattles. Rattly. Everything's in the right place. Just rattle it. Once this rubber just dry rotted so much that it just rattles on the rubber now. It's only on that side, that's odd. Anyways, this is the flex disc I'm talking about, this rubber puck. And they'll crack a lot. Like you can see it's starting to crack apart here. That's not worth replacing yet. But it's a pretty common issue. But this one's okay. I wouldn't recommend replacing this at that point. I wonder if this has even been replaced in the past. These nuts and bolts kind of look new, and you replace those anytime you take that apart. But the differential looks good, and it looks from there. The axles look good. Just look at these bushings here. Those look good. This one. The shock here, the suspension strut, it's not leaking at all, so that looks good. Then I'm gonna check these brakes on the back. Oh, they're good, a lot better than the front. Tire tread's very thick. Yeah, these brake pads are a lot thicker than the front ones. Okay. Then to the other side, check out the suspension boots. Typically the rear suspension doesn't wear as much as the front suspension because the wheels don't turn. This bushing looks good. This one, both top bushings for both control arms look good. This shock as well, no leaks from it. And the rear brake pads on this side, also very thick, good tire life, and then good outside pads as well. Now I'm just gonna check the tire pressure, top it up, make sure it's where it needs to be, reset the TPMS sensors, and then I'll run a fault code test just for fun, just to see what that fault code may be, more so out of curiosity than anything. If it's something obvious, then I'll probably know what it is, but if it needs to be confirmed or diagnosed, then I'll quote some diagnosis time at that point. These front tires too, I didn't really look at them closely. I usually check the tires when I'm inflating air pressure, but they're good, even. It's more important for them to be even more than anything. They're all matching brands, which is good, and the tread depth is matching on each side, front and rear. Okay, I just got the results back from the diagnostic test, and it would appear that the check engine light is on there for combustion misfire. So the engine's been misfiring, at least recently. These two are just open circuits because I have the air boxes unhooked and there's pressure sensors inside these things, those wires. So those are just open circuit faults that I can just clear once I'm done working on the car. I just took off a couple things to inspect for leaks and to start on the job, but yeah, it's misfiring a bit. It'll either be from oil and like the ignition coil connector from the oil in the wiring harness, or neglected spark plugs, most likely. But I'll check the service history and see if spark plugs are not overdue. And if not, then it has to be something else. So then I'll look into it further. But regardless, I'll look into that and get something quoted. If anything, just an hour diagnosis to figure that out too. So I'll get prices together for this stuff in case he wants to know what it is. At least for reference in the future, to know what kind of bill he can expect if he ever wants to address any of this stuff. And then get on to the main job of replacing the turbo coolant lines.